Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing about the process analysis essay, focusing on the writing, composition skills, and the coherence. So this is basically the outline for the following 5 meetings, including the first is the introductions of process analysis essay, followed by planning, process, and organizing the process analysis essay. So next, we will be using Smalley's book, which outlined that the goals include how to plan, organize, and write process essay analysis, understanding the difference between directional process, informational process, audiences, how to divide process analysis essay into paragraphs, and several other reading and grammar skills. So the process analysis essay consists of 3 topics for the introductory session, which include types of process analysis essay, the planning of the process analysis essay, and the generic structure of the process analysis essay. Types of process analysis essay. The process analysis essay can be divided into 2 types, instruct or direct, or explain or analyze. To clarify, that what we call as process analysis essay is basically as expository essay. So any essay which show you how to do something or the process of doing something is basically a process analysis essay. So it's just basically like a new term or different term based on the author. The type of process analysis essay, instruct or direct, aims to directional process essays tells you how to do something. For example, how to send email, how to plant lotus flower, how to listen to music in Spotify. The purpose is to clarify the steps between what is written in the essay so the reader can recreate the steps to copy and imitate the steps and the results. So this is basically what any of how-to books will contain. So the instructions or directions to do something. The second type is explanations or analysis. Informational process essay explain how something works, how something happened, how something is done. It is more like not the surface process, but inside the process, like it's a deeper structure. How photosynthesis work, how the process of antivirus detecting the virus and so on. So we talk about the underlying structure. We talk about underlying knowledge. We talk about something which is not which just cannot be seen clearly in the surface, but it's more like the detailed analysis or explanations regarding things. Planning the process analysis essay. First, you need to identify who your audience would be. Imagine if you have different audience, like you plan to write an essay for your thesis examiner in your BA thesis. It must be different with when you try to write steps for your friend or for general publics. You need to identify the audience because you will be able to decide what to include and what to omit, and you will need to decide what language you use, what kind of writing expressions you might be using in your essay. Second is to arrange the steps in chronological order. Usually, what we will do is to put things and organize things into time chronological order, which one is the first and what follows and next and so on. And then make sure that the process is complete. And you need to define new or unfamiliar word or phrases. You can define it in the beginning, or you can define those unfamiliar words or phrases when you talk in each steps. So there are 2 options for you. Next, you need to warn your reader of the difficulties in the process. If you feel like the process has some difficulties, you can provide some tips. So, for example, when you show the readers how to cook something. You can definitely provide tips regarding what about the temperature, what about tips about how to soak in the water and so on. You can always advise the readers what other things which not included in the steps but quite important to the steps you are explaining. um, so the readers will get informed and will be able to imitate the process well. Next, you need to explain the purpose of a step when necessary, because some steps might be not rationally logic because it's different. You need to add another steps in the process. Then you need to explain why those particular steps is necessary. And then the last thing is to make your thesis statements and also your descriptions persuasive. The generic structure of the process analysis essay consists of similar structure: introductions, the body or developmental paragraphs, and the concluding paragraph. The introductions will introduce the topics and the purpose for writing the process. Then you introduce your thesis statements, and then you develop the developmental paragraph, which contain the process, the details or steps in your process of how to. In the conclusions, you will discuss the results of the process. So this, which makes this expository process analysis essay is different to, for example, the classification essay, illustrations essay, and comparison and contrast essay. The process analysis essay composition skills, which includes first is the introductory paragraph. The introductory paragraph can be divided or classified into three types. The first one is the funnel, where the thesis statements in a funnel introductions is written gradually from a very general idea to a very specific idea. When talking about how to make the steps to make a dalgona coffee, you talks about 8 types of coffee, and then you focus on one certain types of coffee, which is dalgona coffee. The second types is the turnabout. You introduce your essay with a statement contrary to the writer's actual thesis statement. So you start with something else. You start when you want to talk about when the writer wants to describe the thesis statements regarding how the process of sending email, he first discuss about what happens when he receives email. So this is the turnabout. He described what happened with when he received email. Then after that, he talks about the actual process of sending an email. The third type is the dramatic entrance. One way to make a dramatic entrance introduction is to describe a scene that introduces the reader to the subject of the essay. When you want to show the process of how to prepare for a good presentations, you show a dramatic entrance informations. For example, like you describe how one of a family, very important persons in history presents something. For example, the founder of Apple. The coherence is the participial phrases used in the process analysis essay. Since the process analysis essay are organized chronologically, many of the transitional device used include sequence marker and adverbial clause of time. Sequence means like what is the cause and effect of something, and adverbial clause of time to show which actions happens in the beginning and follow next and next. To achieve even more coherence in chronologically developed essay, participial phrases can be used to indicate the sequence of actions between clauses. So the sequence marker, which include the cause and effect, include before and after, first, second, third, finally, and so on. Those show the causal relations and the sequence, what happens in the first, second, and what happens in the following steps. The sequence marker used to clarify the time relationship between the action in one clause and the action in another. Take a look at the following example. Later that year, 2 more nodes were added, UC Santa Barbara and the University of Utah. So the later that year here is the sequence marker, which shows what happens in certain time, certain positions in time. And two more nodes and so on is the independent clause. Next, the adverbial clause of time used to clarify the time relationship between the action in one clause and the action in another. We show the time right after a student has read all sections using this adverbial clause of time to show that he or she should look at the problem that he or she couldn't do. So this particular clause of time is slightly different to the previous one, the sequence marker, in which the sequence marker show the arrangement, the order, what happened first, next, and so on. While the adverbial clause of time show the specific time the certain action is taken or performed during particular time. The third one is the participial phrases. It is the adverbial clause of time, which is reduced as participial phrases as long as the subject of the adverbial clause is the same that is the subject of the independent clause. So for example, right after the student has finished all sections, he should start doing the problem in the review sections. Take a look that there are two subjects. The first one, the students, and the second one is the pronoun he, which is used for two reasons. First is the participial phrases to reduce the students here. The second one is to avoid repetitions. So the adverbial clause, the students, the subjects of the adverbial clause is introduced first, while the second one, because this is the repetitions, so he can change, the writer can change it using pronoun. The opposite thing is can be used too, although it's not quite well and quite common. So you can, for example, say, right after he has finished all the sections, comma, the student should start doing the problem in the review sections. This is also okay, but less acceptable compared to the first one when you introduce the reference in the beginning. Adverbial clause participial phrase here, then right after having finished all sections, he should start doing the problem in the review sections. So deleting the students is also possible if, for example, the subject has been introduced in the previous sentence or the previous paragraph, and the paragraph or the essay overall discuss one topic. Thank you so much.